sit that right there, don't go nowhere, little baby gon' shake that, 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 shit, yeah, I like that, bring that, right here, sit that, right there, don't go.
Welcome back, we're back with another reaction video. Today we're reacting to a Swamp Stories video. Drake's evil street life, the many OVO murders reveal why Kendrick should be terrified. Nigga, please. This is what I come back to. Bush. This nigga chatting, but let's get right into it, man. Swamp Stories on that dick rise.
Ain't no scared.
Scared of what?
Kendrick?
Got money.
Kendrick and his people?
Kendrick Lamar?
Yeah, you're scared of Kendrick?
Tell him to come to town. Swiss cheese. We can't even do Kendrick Lamar on feet. We gotta make drive-by-Q. Baby Key. Drive-by-Q.
I'm called you Bluey.
Toronto top demon top 5 sent a warning out to Kendrick Lamar and letting him know that Toronto ain't LA and you come here, you getting stepped on.
Cuz really living like that, cuz I bet you he come back.
Fighting to protect their turf, and in the case of Barnaby, the victim of mistaken identity.
It's a beef between two groups that's caused all this retaliation.
We're so used to seeing the kids play outside and stuff, and now it's not even like that anymore.
Make no mistake, gangs rule the territory, and the so-called Galloway Boys have owned these parts for a long time. Just ask the police.
In today's age of hip-hop, your image is crucial, and most importantly, your first impression is everything. Like when a rapper is growing a fan base, he first must cultivate an image that validates his music, or else his music simply won't be taken seriously. However, that image isn't always a reflection of reality, especially back in the day. For example, this was Tupac at his rich suburban high school just 2 years before starting to rap.
No, that's Tupac.
If you look at the statistics, they're staggering again, you know? And so I think they're scared because they're realizing that they goofed.
Not to mention that the Migos grew up in an upper-class suburban family along with Lotto, Tyga, Lil Yachty, and basically every Atlanta rapper ever. My point is that because all these rappers came into fame with this fake image already cultivated, the fans bought into it and they avoided the corny wannabe perceptions. Basically, when your image is perfected and your first impression is on point, the fans want to believe you. However, when it comes to Drizzy Drake, he is the poster child for soft, pretending to be something he's not. The first reason is of course because he was famous in acting before he started rapping, but really this shouldn't matter at all, because Tupac was an actor before rapping as well, and nobody holds that against him. But I think the biggest difference and most important reason is that Drake is from Canada.
No. We are polite, we are Canadians.
Yes. In everyone's mind, Canada is some paradise land where everyone is wealthy, no violence ever occurs, and street activities don't exist. So given that, Drake must be soft and all of his homies are jokes. Now of course, both of these takes are rooted in American ignorance, plain and simple. It's very hard as an American to take anything Canadian seriously, I must admit. And my goodness,
the accent doesn't help, Brody.
But as you'll see in this video, all of these opinions are absolute nonsense. Firstly, Toronto is no vacation, and secondly, Drake's crew is one of the most dangerous and wicked crews in all of hip-hop. And believe it or not, but I'm willing to say that Drake's crew was more dangerous than his rivals in Compton. Yep, in this video, you'll see why.
Get help. No, this nigga needs to get help. He needs to get help.
OVO is nothing to play with. But before we get into it, let me run the intro.
This is ridiculous. He said more dangerous.
What if you had just... The story begins in 1984 when a Canadian English teacher named Sandy would meet a soul musician named Dennis from Memphis, Tennessee. The two would meet at a bar in Toronto where Dennis was performing, and it was basically kind of a random interaction.
We met in Toronto. I was in Toronto playing drums with Jerry Lee Lewis. And Sandy was at our show. And I was looking for a pack of cigarettes. And she was standing there at the bar when I asked the bartender where could I find cigarettes. So she said, "Here, have one of mine." So, and that's how it started.
Long story short, the two would hit it off, Dennis would move to Toronto, they'd get married, and they'd have a kid in 1986. This would of course be a son named Aubrey Drake Graham, their only child. Now it sounds like everything was peaches and cream, but in reality that wasn't the case at all. With Dennis being a low-scale musician and Sandy being an English teacher, money wasn't easy to come by. And as a result of this, the couple raised Aubrey in an affordable part of the city known as Weston. For those who are unfamiliar, Weston has an over 70% immigrant population, with 34% of which being black. Statistically, this would make Weston the blackest city in California, and I only say that to say that Drake grew up in a very diverse environment. On top of this, the family's financial struggles would get even worse after a divorce and when Dennis moved back to Memphis. Now, a young Aubrey would no longer have a father present from the age of 6, and to make matters worse, his father would go to prison. This was no easy task for Sandy, but thankfully her community and family would step in to help. Because of his grandmother and help from the synagogue, he was able to attend private school and have a very strong education. In addition to this, his family was able to save enough money to move out of Weston and into the upscale Forest Hill neighborhood.
Enough about the car, let's go inside.
Like, nigga, are you seeing what I'm seeing? They're like 15 and got a fake ass MTV Cribs. Like, what is he talking about? I don't know. It's like, why would you paint a picture that's contradictory? I just don't get it. Yeah, he grew up around California. But he has money. Like, right now, what am I watching? Like, you went right to this? Oh, okay.
Hey, Bubby. Yeah.
They put up in an Acura.
Me and my grandma have a little thing where my mom doesn't let her eat chocolate, but my grandma slides me a little extra cheddar on the side, and I make sure she gets her daily chocolate dosage.
That's my grandson.
Yeah, Aubrey's life was turning out pretty good, and on top of this, he would find his first passion in high school. Long story short, while acting in a school play, an agent would discover him and put him on. So at 15 years old, Aubrey would get a major role on the hit TV show Degrassi.
One warning though, you stay away from my girl.
Things were going great, but at 18 years old, he realized that acting wasn't his true passion and his heart was no longer in it. Deep down, he wanted to be a rapper.
Because he was cooking.
Is what everyone around him was thinking. But after studying the likes of Jay-Z, The Clips, Mac Dre, and more, he was certain that he could make it happen. So every night he'd sneak into the studio on set and record songs all night long. At first it was definitely rough, but he was persistent and he kept getting better and better. Basically, he spent every single night in the studio to the point where it began affecting his performance in acting, and the directors knew that something was up. Well, long story short, he no longer cared about his acting career, as now music was destined to be his future. Without telling a soul, he was in the midst of creating a rap career under the simple name of Drake. Then in 2006, out of nowhere, he would release his debut mixtape, Room for Improvement. The mixtape, although not a Picasso, would sell 6,000 copies, cultivating a local buzz in Toronto. This was enough to catch the attention of some major artists like Trey Songz, Lupe Fiasco, and more. But most importantly, Jazz Prince, the son of the infamous music mogul Jay Prince, would run across Drake on MySpace and see major potential. From here, he would fly him to Houston, sign him to his label, link him with Lil Wayne, and the rest is history.
Yeah, so blame Jay Prince.
We were introduced through another gentleman from Houston. His name is Jazz Prince. Found me on MySpace and loved my music on MySpace. And he was like, man, I know Lil Wayne.
Like, I was
and I'm
voice
playing your music one day. And I was like,
22
you know,
right
like,
now.
you never really. We would talk, and he called me one day, and I was in the barbershop getting my haircut, and he was like, yo. And I was like, friend. And he's like, yo, what's up? It's Weezy. He was like, I'm starting this thing called Young Money, and I'd really love for you to be a part of it. So I want to fly you back to Houston and meet you. And he did just that the day after, and that formed our relationship. And I was like this quiet kid in the corner of the bus, you know?
As we all know, over the next couple of years, Drake would become the biggest thing in hip-hop. And this major superstar fame would bring a lot of pride to his hometown of Toronto, as he was breaking new barriers for what Canadian rappers can do. This, of course, must feel amazing, you know, gaining the admiration from your own region. But unfortunately, there's also major downsides to being a famous rapper as well. To put it simply, a lot of people from the hoods and trenches of Toronto were jealous that somebody like Drake would represent their city.
Like, okay, so you're telling me this Canadian Jew child actor is gonna be
Drake, what the hell?
is gonna be like someone that we say is in our top 5, top 10, whatever. It's like it was a hard sell.
Like, damn, the child actor from Forest Hill is gonna be the rapper who represents us and he's the one who made it? Nah, let's do something to him. And this is when Drake encounters his first problems in the wicked streets of Toronto. May 15th, 2009. It's a Friday night in Toronto and Drake has a night out with his beautiful date named Chantel. Together, the two ride out in the back of a Maybach on the way to a fancy restaurant. Riding high off his career success, Drake is rocking a $100,000 AP watch and iced out chain given to him by Lil Wayne and $4,000 cash in his pocket.
It was Canadian cash?
Long story short, they go out to dinner, have a good time, and at 9 p.m. they hop back in the Maybach. As they await the driver to take off, boom, a handgun is pressed against Drake's window. Oh shit, one man demands that Drake roll down his window while his friend stands in front of the car armed pointed at the driver. They demand that Drake takes off his watch, his chain, and hands over everything in his pocket. So with no real choice, Drake gives up everything, including his prized Lil Wayne chain. After he gives it all up, the men spring back to their car, not knowing that Toronto police were already alerted and are just around the corner. So as soon as the robbers take off in their car, Toronto police are right on their trail. Thankfully, they're able to corner them in up the street and Drake gets everything back. While being the civilian that he is, Drake tells police exactly what happened and the two guys are arrested.
I mean, I have no problem with that. My problem is, y'all did this crime in clearly a place where 12 could easily access. How the fuck would y'all do the crime there? Now maybe it was like it's Drake, but I feel like y'all would have been plotting a little bit, or at least thinking ahead of time. Why in the hell? Whatever, man. Y'all niggas slow still.
Now, does this make Drake a snitch? No. No? Okay, fine. Yes, it does. But who cares? What's most important is that he wasn't hurt, he got his stuff back, and he decided to move different for the rest of his career. He was understandably shaken up by the incident, as he would tell the New York Times that I feel unsafe in Toronto at all times. On top of this, he believed that this wasn't a random or isolated incident. He believed that he was set up by a gang. My chain was tucked the entire night and I had a big coat on covering my watch. They didn't ask for anything but those two items. On top of this, my date had an expensive purse and a bunch of jewelry and they didn't ask for any of that. How the hell did they know I had a chain?
It was the girl. Crazy. Drake getting set up by a female. That sounds about right. That's why the light skin they got trust issues. Let's go.
On in a nice watch, and most importantly, why didn't they ask for anybody else's stuff? Regardless of all that, getting robbed in your own city as the face of the city must not feel great. Not to mention that something like this could easily end a rap career. So Drake was understandably furious, and he was gonna make sure that this could never happen again. He knew that he desperately needed some muscle in Toronto.
Wait, didn't he get robbed again though?
In the States, he had the protection of guys like Jay Prince and Birdman, and in Toronto, he needed that level of street power as well, or even more. So now we enter the chapter of Drake's very first Canadian gang ties. That introduces us to a man named Nacelle Beezer, also known as Chubbs, a native of Toronto's Scarborough district. Chubbs is a big dude, and in Scarborough, he had a reputation for being a bully in the streets. While Chubbs and Drake would meet through mutual friends very early in his career, but Drake honestly thought nothing of it. He heard that Chubbs was a respected member of a local gang, but why would he need to be around something like that? Well, then comes the scary robbery incident, and Drake now knew that having goons on his side might be a good idea. So after the incident, the first person that he called,
or just get security. Like, it's on 9. But around that time, you was about to be one of the biggest, you didn't know it, but around that time, you was about to be one of the biggest things to ever come out. Nigga, no. Like, 09, I think So Far Gone had already dropped. Nigga, no.
was Chubbs, and just like that, they locked in. This now meant that Drake had some serious firepower in the streets, and if you don't believe me, let me introduce you to Chubbs' gang. The Galloway Boys, also known as Galloway, were founded in the 1990s in Toronto's Scarborough district. The Galloway Boys were mostly of Jamaican descent, but it was more so a matter of neighborhood versus ethnic background. They obviously claimed the Galloway neighborhood, but more specifically the various housing projects in the region. Well, at first, the crew was known for being hustlers, stacking millions through illicit imports, and moving weight throughout Canada. Essentially, they rose from dirt poverty as first-generation immigrants to the coolest guys in Toronto with Mercedes, Beamers, chains, and of course the women. And if you know anything about Toronto women, they're worth risking your life for, I promise you. Well, as far as operating money in the streets, things would go pretty smoothly for the Galloway Boys for the first decade. There were no rivals or really any competition in the neighborhood, so their only worry was ducking the feds. But then came the early 2000s, when they got cocky and started to expand a little too far into the wrong hood. Around the year 2001, the Galloway Boys got greedy and attempted to start moving weight in the infamous Orton Park housing projects. And these specific projects, well, they were already occupied by the infamous Orton Park gang. Clearly, Galloway didn't take Orton seriously at all, and this resulted in their very first consequence of the Toronto streets.
Park with a C because I assume that they're fake Crips.
October 10th, 2002, 1:30 p.m. It's a regular day in the life of Galloway's leader named Norris Allen as he's patrolling around Galloway territory like any other day. But little does he know the Orton Boys are on a mission to send a message to stop coming to their hood. They want to cut the head off the snake. Well, at 1:40 p.m., Norris decides to hop in his car to head off and head out of the hood. But coincidentally, at this exact time, the Norris boys pull up and walk up right to his car. They look at him and without hesitation, they start blowing.
Wait, what?
This was a major blow to the streets of Toronto, but more importantly to the Galloway Boys. Norris was their leader, and for Orton Park to eliminate him just like that was disrespectful in the worst way. So now Galloway, who had never been in beef before, had a major choice to make. We can either accept defeat and just own up to the fact that going into their territory is what caused this, or we can stand up to them and go for retaliation. And unfortunately, the Galloway Boys would choose the latter. However, at first, they were simply not ready. These guys were hustlers, not steppers. Frankly, the whole gang didn't even own firearms. So step number one was getting some BAM machines. And in order to do this, they began hijacking shipments of BAMs coming across the Canadian border. And just like that, by 2003, Ontario police say that the Galloway Boys had enough high-powered ammunition to take down a small army. Damn. This was serious, and they were destined to get revenge for their beloved leader. When I say they, I'm really talking about their new leader, Tyshawn Riley, who organized a group of dedicated steppers called the Throwbacks. Right away, Galloway's Throwbacks started stepping, eliminating Orton Park members left and right. Even the leader, Tyshawn himself, was stepping. He was dedicated to finding an op, and sadly, this would be his downfall. That takes us to March 11th, 2004. It's a regular day in Galloway's hood, and Tyshawn is driving up Nielsen Road, the same street where their former leader lost his life. Because of this, he's already angry and bloodthirsty, and as he approaches the red light of Finch Avenue, he looks into an SUV right next to him. For whatever reason,
not that I'm opposed to learning about Canadian history and but nigga, what does this got to do with Drake? This is what I be talking about, bro. Like, I get making content, but nigga, this is stupid. I'm gonna keep with this that. Like, bro, this is stupid, bro. And then say this is real, and this get tired of Drake. What? Which is not, because it's like, nigga, the only thing that's even tying a nigga to Drake right now is Chubbs growing up with these niggas or being from that area. Like, what is this? Drake don't know none of these niggas.
Reason, he believes that the men in the SUV are Orton Park members and that they're sliding through his territory. So without hesitation, he simply rolls his window down, and sadly, the rest is history. The passenger and driver are both hit, but thankfully the driver is able to head off to the emergency room where they save his life. However, his passenger would sadly not make it. As it turns out, this was a case of mistaken identity, and Tyshawn had targeted random civilians.
I feel so hurt. I get past it. I did say my piece. I did forgive them, which I do. I really do.
You forgive, but you don't forget.
Exactly. And I forgive them because if I don't, just imagine the animosity, the hunger, I will have to be walking with. I don't need that in my life. I don't think
how is she pronouncing
anybody understands
still silent?
The detrimental and the tragic that I've been through. I feel like I was the one that's been dead.
This was a major case in Toronto as 2 upstanding citizens targeted randomly at a red light is cause for serious concern. So immediately police began asking around for clues, but sadly nobody in the community would speak up. This is because Galloway was so intimidating in their community that no one would dare go against them. Eventually police would solve the case, but for the next few months Tyshawn was still out and about. You'd think that after doing something so evil, your guilt would eat you up. Like, I can't believe I just claimed the life of a random person who didn't deserve it. Maybe I should start seeking forgiveness and leave this lifestyle alone. On top of this, you think that you'd want to lay low and do your best to stay off the radar, right? Well, nope, not for Tyshawn and Galloway, as even after this incident, they were still determined to target Orton Park rivals. So just a month later, Tyshawn himself would target the 2 that he believed claimed the life of Norris Allen. He would drive by himself into the Orton Park projects and simply just start letting it blow.
Man's is wildin'.
And just like that, a bloodbath would jump off that Toronto had never seen before. In fact, Toronto's homicide detective Wayne Banks believes that Tyshawn escalated everything, and he describes him as the purest form of evil with no regard for human life. And yes, this is the exact sentiment that Scarborough natives would use to describe Galloway. Just a purely evil organization with no regard for anyone's lives. Well, thankfully, a month after this, Tyshawn would be arrested and sentenced to life in prison. However, regardless of his arrest, what he kicked off was simply unstoppable. His new generation of Galloway were ruthless, and unfortunately after this, it was body for body for body for body.
Gunshots ring out in this quiet Scarborough neighborhood. Toronto paramedics say one man was found dead here at the scene, another transported to hospital.
It's those people that start shooting. They were just running. This one girl said she was seeing people that's dropping behind her.
There was some type of a confrontation with Mr. Walker, and shortly after that confrontation, Mr. Ford was shot dead.
The former hustlers were now headhunters, and on top of this, their membership was growing every single year. And of course, to tie this back around to Drake, one of the new members was Chubbs, who allegedly gained a high rank within the gang. For doing what? Well, word on the streets is that he was an absolute crash out. And most importantly, by the time he became friends with Drake, he had enough say-so to get things done.
This is cop work. Fuck. I really be trying to turn off my brain, bro, when I'm watching stupid shit like this, bro. Bro, this is cop work, brother. Like, what the He said, and to tie this all back to Drake. Nigga, this loosely strung together video is... Alright, my nigga.
If you know what I mean. So this is who Drake began running with after he was robbed, and honestly, he was thrown into a middle of a gang war that he had no idea how to maneuver. So yes, having them on his side did make him more powerful, but it also made him a serious target. As you would imagine, Orton Park seeing the biggest rapper in the world hanging out with their ops must not be a good feeling. Like, oh, you want to take sides in our politics? Okay, well you're an op too. And to make matters worse, when Drake started hanging with Galloway was the exact time that their war sparked right back up. In fact, upon Drake's arrival happened to be Galloway's most wicked period ever. And the guys that Drake was hanging out with on a daily basis were simultaneously doing serious damage in the Toronto streets. These would be guys like Ramon Williams and Adham Khamis, Galloway members known for being absolute crash outs. Now we'll get back to them in a second and you'll see why they're important, but for the meantime let's focus back on Drake. We're now in 2011 and Drake's career is evolving from like a love song R&B singer rapper to an attempted new image. An image of a rapper who should be taken seriously on the mic and also in the streets as well. I think it was an attempt to ditch the emotional soft rapper image to a more street adjacent character. 2011 he kinda starts rapping crazy on the tracks. First people were laughing at it like, really? And if you can remember, it all peaked with his hit song headlines.
Tuck my napkin in my shirt cause I'm just mobbing like that. You know good and well that you don't want a problem like that. You gon' make someone around me catch a body like that. No.
I don't know if this is AR or Swamp Stories doing it, but nigga, this is literally the best impression that he has done out of every single video I've watched of this nigga. This is grade A work. Nigga, that's exactly how Drake sounded on that motherfucker.
Don't do it. Please don't do it, cause one of us goes in and we all go through it. And Drizzy got the money, so Drizzy gon' pay it. Those my brothers, I ain't even gotta say it. That's just something they know.
The bold lyrics made everyone laugh, including me. Like, what a joke, this Canadian rapper talking about someone around him catching bodies? Come on. Even Charlemagne the God would clown him for this on the radio.
Corny guy. Like, he's just a corny dude. In that new Headlines video, he looks extra corny. It's like, Drake, why are you thugging now? Why are you dressed all in black? Why you got on black gloves? Why you got a whole bunch of dudes around you dressed in black? And he has the most non-threatening looking goons I've ever seen in my life. Like, seriously, like they look like a flash mob that's about to run up in H&M and take everything. Like, none of them look like a threat. He has the most non-threatening looking goons I've ever seen in my life. None of them look like a threat. Like,
I'm about to see where the threat's
and he has. It's like, Drake, why are you thugging now?
Maybe one of the niggas in the back with the hood on, maybe? The niggas up front look like they about to model for H&M. I'm not gonna lie.
Why are you dressed all in black? Why you got on black gloves? Why you got a whole bunch of dudes around you dressed in black?
Maybe the short nigga?
And he has the most non-threatening looking goons I've ever seen in my life. Like, seriously, like they look like a flash mob that's about to run up in H&M and take everything. Like, none of them look like a threat. He has the most non-threatening looking goons I've ever seen in my life. None of them look like a threat.
Debatable.
Little did he know, most of these goons in the video are certified G-Way members who literally were during this time out sliding in the streets of Toronto.
The Toronto police say there's recently been a resurgence of the once notorious gang. And the young thugs who are running G-Way these days, just like their predecessors, are packing firearms and they're not afraid to use them.
In particular, two of these would be the guys I mentioned earlier, Adham and Ramon, and these guys, well, you'll see. That takes us to September 4th, 2011. By this point, the G-Way vs. Orton Park beef has split up most of Toronto, basically causing two sides to the city. For most people, this would be really bad news, but for G-Way, they were happy because now they had more people to slide on. And on this day, Ramon happens to see somebody who they just started beefing with post their location at a local Domino's. So literally for no reason at all, Ramon and Adham hop in their car and go slide to the Domino's. At 5:30, they spin around the block to see if they're still there, and unfortunately they have no squabbling on their minds. Instead, at 5:45, they stop their car outside and they start absolutely dumping into the Domino's.
That's just ridiculous, bro.
Glass shatters everywhere and everyone jumps down to the ground to take cover. 3 men are injured in the incident, but thankfully they survive after being rushed to the hospital.
I'm gonna keep it a stack, but I don't know if these niggas are more dangerous. Seems like they're more reckless. Like, what the fuck? They just randomly, like, them niggas could not even be there. Not to be trying to rank, like, criminal violence, but nigga, at least get the niggas that you trying to target down. What the fuck? You just shooting up Domino's. Them niggas could have been left. That could have been an old post. Dude, these niggas not know how social media works. I'm confused, bro.
Still though, this was an absolutely insane idea by the G-Way members to just start blowing at a Domino's. What in the world? These guys are the literal definition of crash outs. Like, there's no squabbling going on for G-Way. Well, either way, after doing this, you'd think that these guys would want to duck low and stay out of the way of Toronto police. You know, leave the street life alone for the meantime. But nope, just 2 months later, Ramon would crash out again. And that takes us to November 4th, 2011, 11 p.m. It's nighttime in Scarborough, and Ramon is trapping like any other night. In particular, he has a random customer named Daniel Fuller coming through to cop. And at 11:15, Daniel arrives, hops in Ramon's car, and they go through to discuss the deal. Somehow out of nowhere, the simple interaction turns into an argument where Ramon gets furious and belligerent with Daniel. And unfortunately for no reason, Ramon whips out and starts unleashing. Daniel is rushed to the hospital where he thankfully survives, however he is paralyzed for life. Sadly, this was yet another example of the senseless violence caused by the Galloway Boys. But thankfully, Toronto police would put their best foot forward and arrest them for all of their crimes. Still though, the point is that while Drake and all his goons are being clowned for, you know, being soft and all that, they were actually in the field catching bodies and causing havoc. Oh, and believe me, it gets much worse. December 30th, 2011. It's 11 in the morning in Orton Park, and a young man is leaving his apartment on his way to the bus stop. This would be Dimitri Barnaby, a 24-year-old who has no gang affiliations whatsoever. He just so happens to live in Orton Park. Well, unfortunately, on this exact morning, G-Way members are rolling around Orton Park looking for rivals. And at 11:15, they happen to spot Dimitri leaving his building headed for the bus stop. For whatever reason, they assume that he's affiliated with the rivals, and they instantly target him. Sadly, 2 G-Way members hop out of an SUV and run him down. This was yet another case of mistaken identity at the hands of G-Way, a sick continuous trend from the evil crew. Unfortunately, over the next couple of years, it would only get worse and worse. You know, shooting after shooting after shooting after shooting. But then, thankfully, in 2014, Toronto police would take them down in a major way.
In the fall of 2011, during a 4-month period, number 43 Division saw a significant increase in the number of shooting incidents between 2 groups identified as the Galloway Boys gang and the Orton Park gang, who attempted to occupy control of that area or turf.
In conclusion, 41 G-Way members were arrested, resulting in the complete dissemination of their gang. It was all over. Well, at least for the meantime. And pertaining to Drake, well, this meant that his power in the streets went all the way down. All of those G-Way members who he used to run with and would be in his music videos, well, all those guys were now locked in the feds. Actually, I shouldn't say all, because the one guy who was the closest to Drake somehow ducked the indictment. This, of course, would be Chubbs, Drake's #1 enforcer, and really the only reason he was connected to G-Way. Well, after the scary indictment and almost losing his #1 enforcer, Drake would move forward to disassociate Chubbs from the gang life and instead introduce him to the OVO life. This meant that he would hire him as full-time security, shout him out on Instagram, and even mention him in a bunch of songs. Although he was known in the Toronto streets, in America, nobody took Chubbs seriously. But then, all that would be put to bed in the summer of 2014. That takes us to June 12th, 2014. It's a regular Thursday night for Drake as he's recording music in his Calabasas mansion. It's just him, Chubbs, and a sound engineer kicking it when Drake has the idea to invite over a famous producer. This is when Drake allegedly texts the producer named Detail, who's known for working with Lil Wayne, Birdman, Ashanti, Bone Thugs and Harmony, and more. Well, obviously, given the opportunity to work with Drake, Detail drops what he's doing in a heartbeat and flocks over to Drake's Calabasas mansion. At 9 p.m., he arrives to the gated community, is let in the gate, and drives up to Drake's mansion. He then walks up to the front door, truly excited for the opportunity to work with Drake. This is when Chubbs opens the front door, lets him in, and then out of nowhere just starts swinging on him. Boom, bam, boom, bam, blow. He shatters his jaw into pieces and knocks him down to the floor. And according to Detail himself, Drake stands right there, looks at him, and does nothing to help. So now with the broken jaw,
sucker punching a man and beating him up after you invite him to the crib is not putting in work. You do realize this video is making these Toronto niggas look pussy, correct? Like, what are you talking about? What the f are you talking about? Like, these niggas look like clowns, bro. I'm confused.
And disoriented, Detail stumbles out of the house, gets into his car, and drives himself to the hospital. There, as he's awaiting surgery, he sits back and wonders, what the hell just happened? Why would Drake invite me over for his bodyguard to beat the shit out of me? And then he just standing there like he set it up? It makes no sense. Like, did I do something to Drake that pissed him off? Or was this just his bodyguard Chubbs acting a fool? What was it? To this day, we still don't know the specifics, but either way, Detail would hit Drake with a massive lawsuit. So yeah, this is how Chubbs started to gain his reputation in the industry. A big old bully who does not play about his boss, Drizzy Drake. So now you can see that Drake was kind of moving like the mafia. In LA or everywhere he went, he had Chubbs, and then when he goes to Houston, he's got mob ties, in Louisiana, he's got Birdman, and the list goes on. Basically, he was well protected with real street connections in the States, but in Toronto, it was a whole different story. After the 2014 G-Way takedown, Drake was a major target in Toronto for 2 reasons. Number 1 is that he no longer had any street muscle or any protection, as G-Way was now completely weakened. And secondly, because he chose G-Way's sides in the beef, the people who they were rivals with wanted Drake as well. You know, as the saying goes,
take a picture with them ops and get froze with them.
By choosing G-Way's side, you put a battery in their back by giving them shoutouts and OVO chains, basically forcing their rivals to see you as one of them as well. So to Orton Park, the Malvern Boys, and everyone else who was beefing with G-Way, they wanted to do something to Drake. Now Drake naturally recognized this, and he now knew that he needed more protection in the streets. And in late 2014, he would thankfully meet another crew full of crash outs, this time in the most random way possible.
GG's. What is that? Golovkin?
It's the annual OVO Bounce tournament in Toronto where Drake organizes a team full of NBA players and friends to play against the best local talent.
Oh, he's double butt.
And on this day, star players like Brandon Jennings, Lou Williams, Tristan Thompson, and Jordan Clarkson are playing on Team OVO. Well, the atmosphere in the building is electric as the teams keep going back and forth despite the talent level difference. It even gets to a point where Brandon Jennings is cooking so hard that he takes his shirt off and throws it into the crowd. Then right after, the guy who's guarding him scores on him and takes his shirt off as well and throws it into the crowd. This would be a known local hooper in Toronto named Hassan Ali, and after doing this, the crowd would go absolutely nuts. Eventually, the OVO team full of NBA players wins, but either way, it was a legendary night. Just like that, Ali was a local sensation by the name of Shirt Off Shawty. Now to us, this all seems kinda corny, but Drake was so impressed that he actually went up to talk to him after the game.
Yo, Brody, you were cooking out there on the court. Who are you? What's your name? Where are you from?
Top 5 is ecstatic. The biggest rapper in the world is...
I'm sorry, I cannot let Swamp Stories be the person who's detailing what's corny and what's not corny. Nigga, that's just hoop culture, nigga. It's an NBA player. This nigga getting buckets versus an NBA player and showing the same amount of swagger and intensity that NBA player is showing. Even if I ain't no top 5 from Mechanic Paint, nigga, that's tough. Objectively. Now, he is a crash out, but that's besides the point. I'm talking about right there in that moment. That's tough. That's not corny. Anyway.
Showing him attention, and he decides to seize the opportunity. He tells Drake that he's an upcoming rapper by the name of Top 5, and of course Drake is probably like,
alright, I don't want to hear about that.
Yet another struggling rapper trying to get me to put them on. I don't want to hear it. But little does Drake...
Bruh, that nigga looks so sassy. That's a good little stopping point. This was part 1 of Drake's evil street life. I mean, it's more so like the people around him. Nigga, the fact that he put Kendrick should be terrified, he's trying to sell clout tickets. And he's just trying to get some motherfucking views, bro. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe, share the video, share your thoughts on the video in the comment section below. Hit the notification bell so you can stay up to date when I drop videos on this channel. I'll catch you in the next one. Stay safe, y'all.
Everything I see and I achieve it, bitch, you best. Everything I see and I achieve it, bitch, you best. Everything I'm seeing, I achieved it, bitch, you best believe it. It has been my Nintendo switch shit, don't kick it with my kinfolk. Haters just be talking, so I really do not need their info. Yeah, they info. Yeah.